How many times have you had this scenario? You get up to the green on a par five, you hit your second shot all the way up here, 40, 45 yards away from the green, and you go to hit your pitch shot, and you're a little nervous, you're trying to make your first birdie of the day, and you proceed to rifle the golf ball 70 yards, and it goes completely over the green. Our chance for birdie, totally destroyed. We need to be a better pitcher of the golf course. But first, we have to figure out how the heck do we even hit a pitch shot? What are the proper techniques associated with hitting a pitch shot? What we're going to do today is we're going to learn the proper setup, the proper fundamentals, and then proper distance control for hitting these very, very intricate pitch shots. So quite often when I teach pitch shots, I see newer golfers, high handicap golfers, mid-level golfers come to me and have no idea how to set up for a pitch shot. They'll set up to the golf ball as if it's a full swing. They proceed to make a big full swing and then decelerate, slow down, hit the golf ball, blade it across the green, or maybe even just lay sod over the top of it. Here's what we need to do to set up properly to actually use good mechanics to hit a pitch shot. This is not an enormous shot. It's 50 yards. Yes, it's half the length of a football field, but it's really not that long in terms of golf. So when we set up to a pitch shot, our stance isn't going to be this enormous driver width stance. It's going to be a significantly smaller, more put together stance. And you're going to notice my feet are maybe one or two club heads apart from each other. And the ball's going to go somewhere in the middle, maybe even slightly forward of the middle of my stance. I see a lot of players commonly make this mistake. They may set up with their feet close together, but they'll put the ball really far back. They'll lean the handle forward because they're afraid of just missing the golf ball. And they'll start digging the leading edge into the ground. We don't want that. We want to make sure that ball's far enough forward so the club can scoop and slide across the ground. So stance width is going to be 1 to 2, maybe 3 club head lengths apart. And with that, here's a really important piece, is we're going to put the majority of our weight on our front foot. If we start moving backwards on our pitch shots, we're going to move the low point too far back. It's going to make the club come down, hit the ground first, and force us to blade the shot or maybe add too much loft to the pitch shot, which makes it really hard to judge how far we're going to hit the golf ball. So set up again, 2 club head lengths between the 2 feet, ball slightly forward, weight more forward, and then most importantly, the handle of the club. Do your best to make sure your left arm and the club are more of a straight line. If the handle's pointing at your belly button, that's okay, but never behind your belly button. I want to make sure there's always a little bit of lean to the shaft, maybe straight up and down, but never back here. That's never going to be good for hitting pitch shots. So that is how you set up to hit a pitch shot. Let's talk about the technique used to actually hit the shot itself. So now that we know how to set up to the golf ball to hit a proper pitch shot, now we need to know what the mechanics are to actually hit that golf shot. So now that we're set up properly, many times I see golfers, even after the setup is good, hinge the club back too quickly and then just use their hands, arms, and wrists to hit the pitch shot. Now, it might work, but it's really just a crapshoot at that point. So what I need you to do is we need to have a little bit of turn. We need to combine some of those components. So there's 2 ways we're going to try to hit these shots. Number 1, we're going to do more of a Steve Stricker or Jason Day type of technique to hit the first shot. So when we conduct ourselves in terms of hitting pitch shots, Jason Day and Steve Stricker are very body-centric, and their club is going to move back with their arms very straight. They're going to move into their left side. They're going to keep their arms really straight. And then we're going to project the ball out towards the target in a manner that looks something like this. This is going to help us use the bounce of the club. It's going to help us move our body forward. It's going to help move the low point more forward. So you're going to make ball first contact every time. It's very easy to be very repetitive and strike the ball very well with this technique because we're taking out one of the components that makes golf a little bit harder. So we took out this component, the wrist component. So if you're just learning how to play and hit pitch shots, I would say start with this first and then move on to the slightly more difficult version of the pitch shot. So again, from this angle, what we're going to have is arms are long, we move forward, we strike the golf ball, and our arms stay really long on this end as well. Having our arms really long helps create better contact with the golf ball more frequently. The second technique that we try to use for pitch shots is one where we use our wrists a little bit more. Now, you're going to notice this more of an experienced golfer. They're going to do this a little more frequently. So when they set up to a golf ball, they do the same exact setup that we are doing. But as they take the club back, they have some width, width being how long my arms are as I take the club back. They have turn, which is really important. We just can't have arms and no turn. So they have width and they have turn and they have a little bit of wrist cock. So they take the club back, they have the length, and now they're starting to hinge their wrists up and down. Now, this is going to involve some timing, which makes this harder, but that's okay. You're going to get better at this. So as I set up to the golf ball, I'm going to make my width, I'm going to add my hinge, and from here, what do you notice? Again, my arms are really long on this side. At no point in my beginner lesson of how to hit a pitch shot am I going to start to rehinge the club really quick. We're not going to go into that. That's not where you need to be. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're not very good at hitting pitch shots. So let's keep it really simple and make sure we have our arms really long. We add some hinge and we keep our arms really long post impact. That is going to make you a significantly better pitcher of the golf ball. And when you add the wrists, it's going to make it easier to change how you hit your golf shots around the golf course. So if you have different lies or if the rough is different, the wrists are going to help you increase your angle of attack so you can get the ball out of really gnarly lies around the green. So step one is if you're a newer golfer, make sure you're just starting with your arms really, really long. Start there. Make good contact. Start off a fresh lie on the ground. Make sure maybe you've got a little cushion underneath the golf ball. Work with that first. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to make sure you start adding that little bit of wrist hinge and start making like an L with your left arm in the club. And then maintaining the length post impact. You're going to start to see the ball get up in the air a little bit more effectively, and you're going to see the ball start to land a little softer. That is how you progress from one type of pitch shot to the next type of pitch shot. Now, lastly, you're probably asking yourself, okay, now I know how to hit the actual shots themselves. How do I change the distance in which I'm hitting the golf ball? So there's two factors that go into this. Number one would be speed. Speed is absolutely the most important differentiator between how far and how short the golf balls travel. So all things considered, if I swung this golf club the same way 10 different times and I swung 60 miles an hour on one swing, 65 miles, 70, so each shot I hit is going to be progressively longer than the next, given that the club face or the angle the club face is pointed at, how much loft is on it at impact, is always the same. This is where things get a little dicey. A lot of golfers have a hard time hitting their pitch shots with the same amount of loft on them every time. So I tricked you into fixing this already. So when you set up and hit a golf shot, a lot of players will use the wrists, they come back down, they rehinge the golf club, and when they rehinge it, it adds loft to the club. So every swing I take, I might hit it 60 miles an hour, but with 50 degrees of loft. And the next one might be 60 miles an hour with 55 degrees of loft. Guess what? Those two shots are going to go different distances. The best players in the world launch their golf balls at the exact same height every single time when they're trying to hit very stock pitch shots. So by you making sure your arms and wrists don't rehinge post impact, you're going to start launching the ball at a very specific trajectory. So for many golfers, it's really hard to just change the speed and recognize how fast their club is moving through the golf ball. So what I want you as a newer golfer, a beginning golfer, or someone just learning how to hit pitch shots is I want you to always exert the same amount of energy on every pitch shot at first until you get more comfortable changing the speed. And what I mean by that is if you set up getting ready to hit a pitch shot, I want you to feel like no matter how far you take the club back, knee height, hip height, waist height, chest height, I want you to exert what might feel like 80% effort on every swing. Everyone can always go towards the high end of their swing speed because we always want to just crush it. It's really hard to crank back on it and go, oh, I'm going to hit a 40% pitch shot. Most people's brains don't work like that. So we need to set up and we need to practice hitting pitch shots that are knee height with 85% effort. So that was about 85% effort. Perfect. All right. I'm going to make one that's just past knee height and we'll go hip height. 85% effort. Good. Again, that's excellent. Here we go. Let's go a little bit higher than that. Let's go chest height. So what you're going to notice is all those balls are going to launch at about the same angle, but because I'm taking the club back further and I have more time to generate more speed at 80% effort, the ball's going to carry and go a lot further. That is a much easier way for a newer golfer or a novice golfer to understand distance control with hitting pitch shots. So as you get better, you can start to write down how far you hit these and then make adjustments and change variables to make the ball go higher, shorter, further, whatever that might be. All right, so we've got ourselves 38 yards to the hole, which means we probably only have to hit this ball 30, 32 yards. I'm going to make sure this ball gets in the air over the bunker. How am I going to do that? I'm going to make sure I get set up properly. The weight's a little forward. Low point is in the right place. And I'm going to make sure that I have the proper amount of speed to execute this shot properly. So I'm going to set up. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I give it 80% effort and I take it back to about, I don't know, maybe waist height, I think this will probably go about 30, 34 yards. Here we go. Waist height, 80% effort. How's that? I would say we did pretty good, a little bit long on that. So we got 40 yards. We hit it 32 on the fly. It proceeded to roll 8 more yards out, and the trajectory was fairly reasonable. Okay, so what if we change how far away we are from the hole, and then we change the length of our shot and our swing, and then we proceed again with 80% effort. Let's see what we can do with that. All right, so now we have the exact same line, but now we've got 50 yards. So again, I'm going to set up. I'm going to determine on a couple practice backswings how much backswing I'm going to take and how much effort, 80% again, is going to be needed to hit this golf ball in the right place. Here we go. A little bit deep. So we carried it about 55 yards, nicely stopped on a dime. I've got a nice little putt coming back at it. But again, I figured out how long I wanted to make the backstroke, and then I exerted the same amount of effort each time. What I want to make sure you do not do is I want to make sure you don't start taking the club back really long and decelerating into the shot, because that makes your job way harder. Always have some speed. Speed is going to be your friend. As you learn to hit these wedges better, the more speed you have, the more ability you'll have to kind of get the club face and the golf ball to interact and go higher, have more spin, and you'll just be a better pitcher of the golf ball. So hopefully, now that you actually know how to hit pitch shots, you will have the ability to set up on this tricky little 50-yarder after you hit your second shot onto this par 5, and you'll be able to skim a little wedge shot in there, hit it close, and make your birdie. So hopefully, now that you've seen this, you're going to be a better pitcher of the golf ball. You'll make more birdies on par 5s. You'll make more par saves. Your score is going to drop dramatically. And if you found these things very helpful, feel free to hit the subscribe button. It's always nice to have you as a subscriber seeing my content when it first comes out.